Hi there, welcome to this edition of Global Business Africa, the first one of this program, quite literally. We'll be taking you on a journey from Cairo to Nairobi, Lagos, all the way to Johannesburg, South Africa, telling you the stories of the large corporates and the small-scale entrepreneurs like you watching right now. I'm Ramanyang in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. It's 9 p.m. over here. It's 2 in the morning in Beijing, China. It's 2 in the afternoon in Washington, D.C. Wherever you're from, thank you for joining us. Here's what's coming up in the next half hour. Rwanda ranks high as an attraction to investors, but why are other African countries lagging behind? We'll bring you the details. Nigeria sets its eyes on a new speed train to unlock business between the capital Abuja and Kaduna up north. And we meet a Somali entrepreneur who abandoned the comfort of London to set up a thriving restaurant in Mogadishu. So then, Global Business tonight starts with a focus on the ease, or not, of doing business across Africa. Rwanda is often touted as one of the easiest places to start and do business in Africa. Now, we'll get to the details of that transformation and run some country-to-country comparisons in a moment. But first, a case study. CCTV's Peter Akaba reports Rwanda's tourism sector today is a result of a combination of international marketing and fairly strong engagement with local communities.
It's the National Community Work Day in Rwanda, the global Omuganda. On the last Saturday of every month, the entire country stops whatever else it's doing and participates in a communal effort, be it cleaning up the streets or, as in this case, putting up houses for refugees returning from the neighboring countries. Today, the effort includes tour operators from all across the world, including China, Russia, the Americas, and other African countries.
You realize that the participants in this exercise are drawn from all over the world. So number one, this will actually open up this region to tourism activities. As a product of tourism, we believe voluntary work is one basic product of tourism.
The participants are all here for the second annual gorilla naming ceremony, the Kwita Izina. But as is often the practice here, they get to interact with the local community.
Rwanda is not just about gorillas. It's not just about trekking gorillas. There are people also to meet the locals and mingle with the locals, do some works together. I think it's very, very important.
Passing here, there is this sense of pride of saying, well, I will go through this road and I can say, oh, all those who have come here, they can say, I actually built those houses. So I had a stake. I had a stake in the development of this community. I had a stake in the development of the country.
The move is just one of the many recent and consistent changes and improvements that have been made to enhance the doing business environment to ensure that both communities and businesses benefit. The principal drivers of the Rwandan economy are the production of agricultural and mineral commodities, tourism and construction. Additionally, the government of Rwanda maintains a significant focus on improving Rwanda's energy and transportation infrastructure. Tourism and meetings is now a critical area of focus, with visitors from right across the world. Radical reforms which have made it easier for businesses across all sectors to get credit, pay tax and deal with construction have boosted Rwanda's ratings again in the World Bank's Doing Business report. In the 2014 index, Rwanda is the second most improved country in the world after the Ukraine and the second easiest place to do business in Africa. Community service is an integral part of doing business in Rwanda. The government's insistence of interaction with host communities means a long-term symbiotic relationship that ensures that both host communities and businesses thrive. Peter Akaba, CCTV in Musanze in northern Rwanda.
Now then, Rwanda for most people around the world is known for what happened there in 1994. By the time the killing was over, about 15% of the entire country's population was dead, and more than half of the country's population was either in refugee or IDP camps. Now, put another way, if Rwanda were a business, half if not most of all its net assets were gone. Its liabilities had gone up enormously, and whatever credit lines it had were gone. If it were a business, therefore, it would have been written off. What happened next, however, makes Rwanda's story all the more remarkable. Between 2001 and 2012, Rwanda's economy grew at an average real rate, not a nominal one, of about 8% per year. The poverty rate dropped from 59% in 2001 to 45% by 2011. Remember, we're still talking about a tiny, landlocked Central African country here. But it's easier to start a business, enforce contracts and pay taxes in Rwanda than it is in South Africa, sub-Saharan Africa's most advanced economy. Rwanda's recovery, however, isn't all rosy. It is East Africa's most unequal country, according to the Society for International Development. Its economy is not creating enough jobs to absorb even half of the 200,000 job seekers it creates every year. For a country where 66% of its population is under 25, that is a significant problem. Over to Nigeria now. It may be Africa's biggest economy, but setting up a business over there is, to put it mildly, quite the nightmare. The World Bank's index on the ease of doing business ranked Nigeria 147 out of 189 countries surveyed. CCTV's Digi Badmus takes us through the process of starting a business in Nigeria.
Opening a business in Nigeria, whether big or small, can be a very, very daunting task. Let me give you this vivid demonstration. Let's just say I want to set up a very small limited liability company with just about 1 million share capital. My first task would be to register the company with the Corporate Affairs Commission, otherwise known as CAC. That is the body that registers companies and business names here in Nigeria. Now, what the CAC does is first to search the availability of the name I have chosen for my proposed company to be sure someone else has not already taken that name. Ordinarily, the search should take no more than a few hours, but given the bureaucracy in the system with no functional centralized database, the process could take up to 3 days. With the name secured, the next step is to file the entire necessary document for the registration proper. Now, that is where the longest delay is experienced. It could take 3 weeks to 1 month before everything is concluded. By the way, the government is trying to cut down the whole process to just about 24 hours, but so far it has not worked. Okay, now, with the registration process complete, the next task is to secure a space for the company, pay the rent, get a generator because I don't want to rely on public power supply, which is more than erratic, and make sure the facility I have rented has a borehole for water supply because public water supply is hardly available. And one last but crucial thing, hire my own private security. Now, after doing all of this, I wait for the taxman to come. Long and short, that's the way it is in Nigeria. Quite expensive, you want to say, but the opportunities here are indeed enormous and very difficult to ignore. Digi Badmus, CCTV, Lagos, Nigeria.
That's a story in Nigeria, but what about Egypt, a country that dropped in the 2014 Ease of Doing Business Index to 128th worldwide? Miles upon miles of red tape have always been a major hurdle to putting investments into that country. Although there have been attempts to ease the registration process for new business, CCTV's Yasser Kim tells us there's still plenty more that needs to be done.
New regulations allow you to establish a simple trading company in a week with a minimum number of paperwork and working with just one government official. The problem is when you want to go into production. A small plot of land for a factory or even a simple workshop like the ones behind me here will face the same complications. If you choose a location just like the one here for a simple workshop, you will need at least 80 approvals from different authorities, and such as the Ministry of Antiquities to make sure there are no artifacts or ancient artifacts underground, or the Ministry of Petroleum for the same reason, and the Ministry of Interior and Defense for security checkups. It takes over 3 years to be given a location. Once you get the land, you will need another 2 years and loads of registration money to receive the license to begin production. It's the same whether you're a huge factory or a tiny workshop. That's why large businesses usually opt to invest in other countries, while SMEs decide to ditch the regulations and go underground. The informal economy, known here as the ghost economy, has grown to reach around 45% of the total output of the Egyptian economy. And they don't pay any taxes or insurance or adhere to quality control. Yasser Hakim for CCTV, Cairo.
Right then, from Nigeria to Egypt, let's take it straight back to Rwanda, where CCTV's Peter Kaba has been for the last week, is live now with more data on what that country is doing to attract more investors. Peter, Rwanda for a lot of people was essentially a write-off in 1994. How exactly did it bounce back?
Well, Rama, to put it direct, it's just simply three things. The first, of course, discipline. Second, focus. And third, political will. There is a sort of single-minded dedication to achieving objectives here in Rwanda. And people do put their minds to a thing and then get it done. The fact that the country has been able to set up what is called a one-stop shop for doing business, and the fact that it takes just 6 hours to set up a business here. I did a tour of the special economic zone that is set aside for industrialists who want to come and invest in Rwanda, and I can tell you it's impressive. Water on site, there is the land itself, electricity, everything you need under one roof. I think this is what other African countries have yet to achieve, the sort of single-minded dedication that is required to achieve things like that and in that sort of speed, Rama.
Indeed. Peter, with regard to tourism, especially conference and events tourism, meetings, incentives, conference and so on, they're now key to the Rwandan strategy to accelerate development. How's that working out?
Well, I can tell you, this is my third time in Rwanda this year. Previously, I've been here for 2 conferences, large ones at that, the last one being the Africa Development Bank meeting that was held here. About 5,000 delegates coming in here and sleeping in the hotels, eating Rwandan food and basically boosting the Rwandan economy. The government has gone out of its way to be able to net such large conferences right across the year and right across the board from right across the world. When you throw in these smaller conferences of maybe up to 1,000 or 2,000 delegates that occur here maybe about once every 2-3 months, and the really smaller ones that are maybe hundreds of delegates that happen about once a month, then you're looking at a large stock of tourists coming into Rwanda just for events and conferences alone. Then, of course, there is the other sectors, the tourists who come here to view the gorillas. Like right now, we are just about to go into the Kwita Izina, which is the naming of the gorilla session, which is supposed to be held tomorrow. And I can tell you that Musanze, which is the second largest town in Rwanda, is virtually swamped with tourists. The government, of course, has been instrumental in going out to net these tourists, Rama. And the body at the center of all that is the Rwanda Development Board, a body which has been given the mandate to single-mindedly go out and market Rwanda as a destination, Rama.
Indeed, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for that. That's CCTV's Peter Kaba in Rwanda. He'll be chilling out with a bunch of gorillas tomorrow for that naming ceremony. We'll have an update on his visit as well, right here on Global Business Africa. Now then, agriculture. It may be a key driver of Africa's GDP growth in 2015. Not my words, but those of the chair of the African Union Commission, Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. She argues that the outlook for the continent as a whole is fairly bullish, but poor infrastructure does continue to limit growth in many economies. Here's part of her conversation with CCTV's Girum Chala.
To perhaps further promote the country-to-country, region-to-region, generally intra-Africa trade, what is the AU doing here?
Well, actually, intra-African trade is improving quite a lot in some of the regions, ECOWAS, in East Africa, in Southern Africa. There's quite a lot of improvement in intra-African trade. And that has been because of the free trade areas that have been established in those areas, but also they have done a lot in terms of infrastructure, but in also trying to harmonize the customs and all that, and trying to shorten the time that trucks take on the road from origin to destination.
Now, plenty of African governments say that they're open to investment and they're open to doing business. But what's the reality really like on the ground? We asked you for your feedback on that particular topic, asking you exactly how easy it is to start a business and to run one across Africa. Here's a sample of your responses from our Facebook page. Mwale Dan Jones from Uganda, you argue that taxes essentially ought to go down. Semakula Emmanuel, also from Uganda. Your argument is that the government should offer tax holidays, tax exemptions, subsidization, low-interest loans, improved security, sensitization to all businessmen and women in Africa. Quite a bit of marketing required there, in your opinion. Fred Manjawira from Malawi, you argue that you don't like bureaucracy. It's a predetermined tool to hammer down upcoming business tycoons. Unfortunately, it's only easy for foreigners, you say. Chikan Alobele from Nigeria. You argued, as of course Deji Badmus argued a little earlier, it's simply not easy here in Nigeria. Maximilian Tashilani from Nigeria. Very easy to start a business, you argue, but they tend to die before their 5th birthday. Langat Cheriot Felix from Kenya. You argue that, hey, in Kenya it's fairly straightforward. In fact, our president reviewed it last week. Well, some would beg to differ. Chris Jones-Obum from Nigeria. Again, you say that it's fairly easy. And Kimbugwe Abdul from Uganda. 2 words from you here. Fairly straightforward. It's very difficult to start a business in Uganda. Well, then that's your feedback. Do keep it coming. Just look for our Facebook page at CCTV Africa on Facebook. Now, we're taking a short break. Here's what's coming up next. With regard to the market, a quick run through that. The all-share index, the JSE, the EGX30, and of course the 20-share index, all in the green today. Fairly interesting start to the week, a bullish one, if you will. But we'll see how that pans out in the rest of the week. When we come back, we'll be in Nigeria. It's setting its eyes on a new rail line to ease business and transport between Abuja and Kaduna. And stakeholders gather in Zimbabwe, seeking ways of revitalizing Africa's aviation industry. Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies.
From small businesses to large-scale enterprises, hear directly from entrepreneurs behind the story. It's about putting you in the picture so you know where Africa fits in the global context.
Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
We do know that the strike isn't anywhere near close to coming to an end either. That means that those workers are going to sink even further into poverty.
Welcome back to Global Business Africa from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Let's go back to Nigeria, where Chinese-funded standard gauge rail projects linking the federal capital of Abuja with Kaduna up north is almost complete. The rail line is expected to cut road congestion and the time it takes to travel between those 2 urban centers. The Abuja-Kaduna line is due to be completed by the end of this year. It's co-funded by the China Exim Bank and Nigeria's government. CCTV's Carol Ola has this report.
It's the beginning of the line for the Abuja-Kaduna standard gauge railway line. A few kilometers outside Abuja city, in the railway construction depot, the new line is taking shape, bit by bit, steel slat by steel slat. The Kaduna-Abuja rail project is the first segment of the Lagos to Kano standard gauge rail line, which cuts right across the country into the hinterland and is expected to open up the northern interior of the country and connect it to the ocean to the south. According to government, the rail initiative is part of a move to ease population and traffic pressure on Abuja, and when complete and operational, would enable people to live in Kaduna commute to work in Abuja. This is expected to change the lives of many who find working and living in the capital expensive and cumbersome.
Everybody know about this Nigeria traffic. Yeah. Always they hold up, or let me say traffic jam. Yeah. After this railway be concluded, everybody can follow this. It's more safe, it's more comfortable, and it's more fast.
The work on the line is nearly 87% complete, with earthworks and hydraulic work proceeding ahead of schedule. Nearly 150 kilometers away in Kaduna State, work continues apace to lay the track and ensure that this project, part of the Nigerian Vision 2020, comes to fruition. This machine takes just 15 minutes to lay 25 meters of track before rolling over the freshly laid piece and repeating the process over and over again. According to its operators, it can lay up to 1 kilometer in a day. Upon completion, the rail project is expected to carry over 5,000 people every day in both directions at speeds close to 160 kilometers per hour. Cargo trains are expected to be slower, but will carry upwards of 3 million tons of cargo every year.
This project from Abuja to Kaduna, you know, the distance around 200 some kilometer, and if you use bus, you take also 3 hours. But if you use train, just 1.5 hours, that is enough.
The China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation of Nigeria is the company carrying out the project. According to its CEO, this is just one of the many projects being undertaken by the company in Nigeria. In total, it currently is carrying out contract work across the country in 120 different projects worth about $30 billion and providing direct employment for over 20,000 Nigerians. Penina Karibe, CCTV.
Now then, over 200,000 members of the National Union of Metal Workers of South Africa, better known as NUMSA, will go on strike in a matter of hours on the 1st of July after last-ditch talks to avert that particular strike failed. Let's find out exactly what happened and what impact it will have on South Africa. Angelo Kopler joins us now live from Johannesburg. Angelo, NUMSA has over 200,000 members. So give us a sense of what parts of the economy will be hit when those members go on strike tomorrow.
Well, the short answer is, Raman, probably the entire industry and economy is going to be affected. It's an open-ended strike. Initially, though, the foundries and component manufacturers and some plastics manufacturers will be affected. There are also those businesses that are getting their product and components from those sectors that are going to be immediately affected. Then, of course, let's not forget the auto sector. NUMSA has a very large component in the auto sector in the Eastern Cape, and they'll definitely be on strike. But also, what's been happening, because the two parties have been negotiating for at least 3 months now, some of those companies have been stockpiling stocks. They probably learned a lesson from the platinum sector. So there will be some stocks on hand. It's not immediately clear, though, whether that strike's actually going to take place. We do know that tomorrow the marches are going to be happening. They're happening in Johannesburg, Durban, PE, East London, George and Cape Town. But it is the first step, Raman.
Indeed. We'll have to leave it there for the time being. Thank you very much for that. That's CCTV's Angelo Kopler. We'll certainly be keeping tabs on that story right here on Global Business later on tomorrow. Now then, to say that aviation in Africa remains underdeveloped would be an enormous understatement. Between tiny airlines, poor infrastructure, fragmented and often closed markets and low passenger numbers, aviation remains quite unattractive for many investors. That said, a gathering of players in that particular business, which just ended in Zimbabwe, is trying to turn the tide. CCTV's Farai Mokutia was there. He now reports on their efforts tonight in What's Hot.
It takes decades for a baobab tree to get to this size, but once it gets this big, it dominates the landscape and becomes imposing. That's pretty much the story of the global aviation industry. It's the big players with a long history in operation that are dominating the sector. But can African players get in on the action?
Being state-owned means many airlines are poorly funded and saddled with inefficiencies, amongst them old equipment. The average age of African fleets is 14 years, a lifetime in aviation.
What all aircraft does is they're very expensive to operate, they're not as reliable as modern ones, and they are subject to high fuel consumption.
But in the midst of the despondency, a number of low-cost operators are entering the fray. East African-based FastJet is one of them. It recently announced it will start flying 2 times a week from Dar es Salaam to Harare in August.
Low-cost airlines don't try and attack the existing passenger base that our competitors have. What we try and do is use a low price to stimulate traffic so that more people fly more often and more people view aviation as an accessible mode of transport rather than the very long bus journeys that some Africans have to endure.
With the majority of African countries aiming to cash in on tourism, the need for multiple, reliable and affordable air transport operators is critical. Zimbabwe is hoping to increase the number of airlines coming into the country from the current 16, but opening its skies could spell doom for its ailing national airliner. It's a tough decision that the government feels has to be taken.
We live in a world of competition and competitiveness, and if you can't stand the heat in the kitchen, you must ship out. So we are saying to Air Zimbabwe, the days when we used to nest them are gone because the world is globalized, so they must find their net worth within the context of that competition.
Only time will tell if Air Zimbabwe and other African carriers can soar to the desired heights. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Victoria Falls, Zimbabwe.
Now, quite unlike the equity numbers you saw a little earlier, the commodity prices you're about to see are quite different. Crude oil, gold and coffee all heading south by various orders of magnitude. The only gainer on our board today being cocoa. When we come back, we'll introduce you to a Somali entrepreneur who abandoned the comforts of London to go back and open a thriving restaurant in Mogadishu. If you want to stay for that, see you in a bit. Welcome back. Let's go to Somalia. After 2 decades of fighting, the capital city is getting quite the facelift. A businessman, Mohammed Ahmed Jama, is part of that process. He lived in London for nearly 20 years, but now he's back home and telling a very different story about Somalia.
My name is Mr. Ahmed Jama Mohammed. I'm here as a businessman in Mogadishu. My business is for restaurant hospitalities, and I've been here for nearly 3 years now. I left in the country in 1983. I went in London, in England, and I just come back for 2 years ago, about 2008 in November. When I set up the restaurant here, this was a front line. 100 feet, there was a shabab, and this was a defensive for the army, the local government. And people, they think I was mad, but I want to show Somalian communities, wherever they are, we can change. We can change a lot. My restaurant I do as organic food, a local food. The fruit and vegetables I got, it's like I go to the market and I buy it. I have 43 people working as a securities, washers, cleaners, cookies, waitresses, everyone coming here. We can have Arabs, Turkish, middle class Somalians. So I don't know who's going to come in next morning. When I compare in Mogadishu now, it's getting better. And I'm hoping a lot of people like me, they're going to come in and show them people how to live, show them how to make businesses. Every flight in this season is full. You can get tickets from London, from America, from Italy. Every airline is full. So that it shows me better. And diaspora is coming back. And I hope so.
How's that for a dose of optimism about Somalia? Let's make a quick run through the forex markets here for you. The Naira at 163.05 in trading today. Keep an eye on the Kenyan shilling, however. GDP data came out for the first quarter today. We'll analyse that in a little more detail in tomorrow's edition of Global Business. That's it for this edition of Global Business. Send your feedback on the program to Global Business Africa at cctv.com. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. You can catch us over there. For now, though, thank you very much for watching. I hope you make this a regular stop on your fix for African business content. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Brahmanya.